Welcome to Novus Prospectus. Join us as we take a deeper look at the threads that bind our world together, ask the right questions, and seek new perspectives. Most people say they're willing to have their minds changed. Are you one of them? A small, almost unknown Gilmour Space Technologies is on the cusp of becoming one of the few purely private space initiatives to achieve orbit. Gilmour's first orbital test launch attempt has just been given the green light by Australian regulators. Gilmour might even beat Blue Origin to orbit, but we don't hear much about it. Why is that? And why should we actually care about Gilmour? Australia has a modern economy. The world's 12th largest, depends as much as any country on space services, and excels at many engineering and industrial disciplines. Australia was the 7th country to reach orbit way back in 1967. So why are there no orbital launch services in Australia in 2024? Why does Australia represent just 1% of the world's $500 billion of space spending? Firstly, that launch in the late 60s was of an Australian-built satellite from Australian soil, but it used a Redstone vehicle gifted by the US. There was no sovereign orbital rocket expertise established, let alone maintained. And since then, Australia seemingly had little need for a space industry. When payloads and launch services can be obtained easily in the US and Europe, there was presumably little need to launch from within Australia. Gilmour will soon make its first attempt to operate a domestically designed and built orbital-class rocket, having just received regulatory approval to launch, which is all very exciting for the nascent Australian space industry. However, there is at least one big elephant in the room. Really more of a question I have, but we'll get to that later. First things first. Gilmour was founded in 2013 by two brothers, Adam and James Gilmour, and encouraged by the rapid development of commercial space services around the world. These brothers saw an opportunity to develop affordable, locally made rockets for small payloads in Australia. It was a bold move in a market dominated by larger players with big head starts in an industry famed for its engineering challenges. Innovation would be the key to success. So how innovative is Gilmour? Gilmour was established as a private company, and it set about raising the necessary funding. Gilmour has also benefited from significant Australian taxpayer support. Clearly, a number of actors, having done their due diligence, have backed Gilmour and its tech. But finite dollars will only get you so much runway. The team at Gilmour began, as most space launch providers do, by developing engines for its new rocket system. Gilmour settled on a hybrid engine design for its booster and a more traditional liquid fuel engine for its upper stage. Hybrid rocket engines, which combine liquid oxidizer and solid fuel, are not common. Virgin Galactic chose a hybrid engine for its Spaceship Two. But why did Gilmour choose that path for its orbital rocket? Hybrids tend to be less efficient than liquid fuel or solid fuel engines, unless you can develop the hell out of them, and that costs more than Gilmour has. Hybrids are susceptible to fuel regression rate issues and cooling issues without liquid fuel on hand. Without liquid fuel, rocket engines also have no conventional way to power the gas generator or preburner to power the engine. The major advantage would presumably be the safety benefit that comes from avoiding handling, loading, and operating liquid fuels. And with less risk comes cheaper and simpler operations. By using a solid fuel, Gilmour gains that simplicity. But by using a liquid oxidizer, it retains the ability to throttle the engine, unlike solid rockets, which when lit, stay lit until they expend all fuel and oxidizer. A hybrid engine is cheaper and simpler, but nobody has ever used one to get to orbit. So what did Gilmour do? It's actually difficult to find confirmed details of Gilmour's choices, technologies, and solutions. I think it 3D prints the solid fuel. I think it uses ablative cooling on the hybrid engine nozzle, but it's difficult to confirm that. It does seem to use regenerative cooling on its upper stage engine. It presumably uses an electric pump rather than liquid-fueled preburner to operate the liquid oxidizer side of the engine, also adding to the safety dividend. But that's not confirmed. Gilmour has done the math and obviously believes the hybrid engine it's developed has the ISP it needs to reach orbit and serve its customers. Gilmour says hybrid engines not only simplify the launch process, but also reduce the environmental impact of each launch. Other sources have said that hybrid engines, in general, are dirtier than liquid-fueled rockets due to combustion inefficiency. But regardless, if successful, the launch of the Gilmour rocket would mark the first use of a hybrid engine to orbit. Gilmour's first rocket design, the Block 1 Eris, is a three-stage orbital-class rocket system, 25 meters tall, with a payload up to 1.5 meters wide. The first stage is powered by 4 Sirius hybrid engines. The second stage is powered by 1 Sirius hybrid engine. And the third kick stage will be powered by the 3D printed liquid-fueled Phoenix engine. Operational versions of these engines will enable the Eris to deliver payloads in the 300 kilograms range to orbit. Delivering small payloads to low Earth orbit would pit Gilmour against, for example, Rocket Lab's Electron. And Gilmour is betting that demand for launch services will be sufficient to make the engineering effort financially viable. It's already begun construction of 2 more rockets, presumably Block 1 Eris, and it has plans for a more capable Block 2 Eris. The first Eris test flight is due to launch in December, or if necessary, early 2025. So what is this company that's built its own rocket? Designing and building rockets isn't cheap. Gilmour needed money to bring its vision to life. Luckily for its rocket program, there has been no shortage of financial backers ready to invest, or so it seems from the outside. Early support came from Main Sequence Ventures, a fund backed by the Australian government's CSIRO, as well as Blackbird Ventures, an Australian VC firm. Over at least 4 funding rounds, plus a seed round, Gilmour secured nearly 150 million Australian dollars from investors like Host Plus, other Australian superannuation funds, and Fidelity's Fine Structure Ventures. Gilmour has raised what it hopes is enough runway to start generating cash flow. Additionally, while not unique, Gilmour has also been successful in innovative approaches to its R&D. A number of MOUs, agreements, and partnerships have followed, including with many universities and foreign firms, including Hanwha. Fundamentally, the necessary engineering and rocketry expertise is not easy to find in Australia, given the lack of a mature space industry. Gilmour could once boast Nick Lindsay as its chief of staff, a former SpaceX director of spacecraft manufacturing for the Dragon. But finding staff with expertise is tough, and Gilmour has instead turned to academia. Benefiting from an advanced Queensland Industry Research Fellowship grant, Dr. Ingo John at the University of Queensland worked with Gilmour on propellant feed systems and cycles for space launch vehicles. Gilmour has also received substantial taxpayer support, including a $52 million grant through the federal government Modern Manufacturing Initiative to develop critical parts of the space systems ecosystem in Australia. The company established strong relationships with government bodies like the Australian Space Agency, which has actively supported Gilmour's efforts to develop a sovereign launch capability in Australia. This support, combined with collaborations with defense and commercial partners, enabled Gilmour to rapidly advance its technologies and also develop its own orbital launch facility in North Queensland. Gilmour operates its own launch facility. There may have been a suggestion that development of a facility took attention, time, and resources from development of the vehicle. Gilmour may have been able to launch from another country at another facility. But if Gilmour wanted to become a truly sovereign Australian space launch provider, it needed an Australian launch facility. A number of locations were assessed, but ultimately Gilmour chose Bowen in Australia's northeast. Bowen is a small town that sits on the major East Coast highway and rail lines. It's less than an hour from Townsville, a major commercial hub in North Queensland. It's relatively close to Gilmour's base on the Gold Coast. Well, it's closer than possible sites in Western Australia at least. And sitting on the East Coast allows launches out to sea, far from populated areas. And it's close to the equator at 20 degrees. For reference, Cape Canaveral in Florida sits at 28 degrees. Gilmour benefited from support from both state and federal governments to develop the facility. The state government of Queensland owns the land and leases it to Gilmour. An operating license for the spaceport was granted in early 2024, months before the launch license itself was provided. So here's my question. Even if, as seems true, there is a supply and demand signal for orbital launch services across the globe, Why does Australia need its own launch provider? Is there a pool of payload manufacturers in Australia eagerly awaiting a launch option made cheaper because it's geographically closer? Is it really cheaper to ship your payload to Bowen than it is to Florida or Europe? Are there payload manufacturers in Asia and other parts of the world seeing the same cost savings? Or will Gilmore be able to offer objectively cheaper mass to orbit rates regardless of the geographic location of its manufacturing and launch facilities? If a hybrid engine is really the solution to cheap mass to orbit rates, why has it never been done before? So after all that, Gilmore now arrives at the definitive moment. The first orbital launch attempt of the Eris rocket, scheduled to take off from the Bowen orbital spaceport. And if successful, this mission will make history as Australia's first domestically developed and launched orbital rocket. So why now? Why Gilmore? No doubt the team at Gilmore have answers to those questions. No doubt they believe they can compete in a very tough industry, full of extreme engineering challenges and fierce competitors. Gilmore is seeking to be only the second launch provider to reach orbit on its first attempt. But regardless of the outcome of Launch 1, the Gilmore team have done a remarkable job to be where they are. If and when the Eris makes it to orbit, it will be truly historic. The first domestically designed, produced, and launched orbital rocket in Australia. The first hybrid engine-powered orbital rocket. And hey, one of the very first commercial entities to reach orbit at all. Not even Blue Origin can boast it yet. So good luck, Gilmore. It's certainly exciting. I hope Gilmore streams some great coverage of the attempt. The space community is crossing its fingers for you. I hope it's quite the show, just not too explosive. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, comment below. We really do read everything. And please subscribe for more insights.